Hello, my friends. Welcome to Lindy's Magpie Reads. This is a place where I talk about books, and I have 7 books to tell you about today. Before I get to those, there's been so much going on in the past week, so I'll fill you in. I have plantar fasciitis right now. It has to do with a tendon in my foot, and so I've had to take a break from rowing. If you're not familiar with how sculling works, the kind of rowing that I do, this is all in your legs. So you're on a sliding seat and you keep pushing. So your feet are, 16 to 20 times a minute are pushing against this plate. Makes the boat go. So sadly, I've had to rest my foot and not row for a while. However, I did go down to the rowing club on Sunday because there's a new program, Newcomers on Water, that is free for newcomers to Canada, refugees, to come and try rowing. And so I was on the dock helping out, and it was a great day. We had lots of fun. As you can see, I'm on our deck. Our landlord recently refinished the surface on the deck, so we didn't have any furniture up here for quite a while, and now it's all ready for rain. This is what the protection of the surface is for. But we have had so much sun, and then it's great to be out here where we can have our sun umbrella and enjoy the weather. I've also been doing a lot of gardening. I set myself a budget of $100 because this is a rented space. I don't want to spend too much money. Anyway, I bought some BC native plants that I have put in the garden, and they happen to be plants that also grow near the farm where I grew up in Alberta. So a little bit of home here, including a Saskatoon bush and some little small perennials. It was a lot more work putting them in than I thought, because the area where I'm planting them have existing invasive species, and I thought I'll just dig those out. But I didn't account for the cedar roots, which are also in that space, so it wasn't so easy to dig. Anyway, got that done, and lots of weeding too. If you were watching my channel last spring, you might remember that I talked about this particular invasive species called shiny geranium, and it was everywhere in this yard. And I filled 17 black garbage bags full last year. So this is one that you can't even compost. It's that bad. It should go to the garbage dump in a sealed bag. Anyway, this year I only had 5 bags full, so much improved. I'm glad to see that the pulling has worked. And we had lunch guests on Sunday, and my menu featured dandelions. I made a baked spinach and dandelion green pasta, and I used a dandelion syrup that I made from the flowers for the dressing on the salad. Yeah, love those dandelions. Then afterwards, we went to this artist open studio tour. You get a map, and then you just go to whichever of the studios you want. I think there were nearly 30 studios, and we went to 3. Several of them had multiple artists at them, and it was a great day. Always love looking at art. Okay, I am going to include some footage from that studio tour at the very end of this video, so stick around for that if you are curious. And now I am on to the book content, starting with a celebration for Canisia Lubrin. Her debut novel, Code Noir, has won the Carol Shields Prize. So, congratulations. This book was also shortlisted for the Writers' Trust Prize and for the Governor General's Award, and I am sure that it would have been on the Giller Prize list as well, except Canisia had withdrawn that book from consideration for the Giller Prize. She and about 40 other authors withdrew books that were published last year in protest of the sponsor for the Giller being Scotiabank and their connection with making arms in Israel, the company Elbit. So this No Arms in the Arts activism and all this surrounding the Giller, I am going to link down in the description, so if you want to know more about it. But I'm happy to say that in February of 2025, Giller announced that they are discontinuing their connection with Scotiabank. This came after nearly 400 authors and book workers joined in a protest, and 2 of the 2025 jurors quit. But back to Code Noir. This is a dazzling book, and it's not an easy read. I tried it twice and DNF'd both times. The third time, I did a buddy read of it with Jolene of Bookworm Adventure Girl, and I got a lot more out of it that way. And then I listened to it in audio, so I've actually read it twice now, and I believe that I will get more out of it from subsequent readings. It is a totally decolonial. It's structured around these historical decrees of the title. It is coming out in paperback on June 3rd in Canada. So I'm thinking I will get myself a copy so that it will be there. It's the kind of book that's easy to just read sections of, because each chapter can stand alone as well as being interrelated with the other stories in it. Yeah, fantastic book. And another noteworthy book award winner is Percival Everett for his book James. It was recently announced as a Pulitzer Prize winner. It's also won the National Book Award in the US and many other accolades. So congratulations to Percival Everett. Love that book so much. Okay, on to the books that I finished in the past week, starting with one that I picked up for May 5th, Red Dress Day. That's the day of commemoration for missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls and Two-Spirit people. This is recognized both in Canada and the US. And the book I chose is called Little Moons. It's a graphic novel written by Jen Storm, who's an Ojibwe author in Manitoba, and the illustrations are by Ryan Howe. This book is published by HighWater Press, which is an imprint of Portage and Maine, and they publish stories by emerging and established Indigenous authors. This book is suitable for ages 12 and up, and in the story we meet Rihanna, who is, I think, 13 years old. She lives on a Ojibwe First Nation reservation with her mother, her older sister, who's about a couple years older, that's Chelsea, her little brother, And their father lives nearby. There's lots of relatives around, aunties and the grandmother, Coco. The nearest city is a long drive south. So the art is full color. It's digital art. The story is high realism. We have the day-to-day life of Rihanna. Goes to school, comes home on the school bus, hangs out with her family, goes to school, comes home, until one day Chelsea, who had planned to go shopping after school, just doesn't come home. And we go through a year of the family grieving, trying not to lose hope that Chelsea will be found, or that they'll know even what happened to her. And the many different ways that different individuals, even in the same family, grieve is depicted so well in here. All of the complexities of how, in this case, not knowing what happened. What a book for reader awareness of this issue of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. There's also something of the intersection between the human world and the spirit world. The little moons of the title come into that. And I heartily recommend this. It is available in the Hoopla app, if your library has that. Now, this next book is also in graphic format. This is a memoir, NonNonBa, by Shigeru Mizuki, and it was translated into English by Jocelyne Allen. Now, the end papers have a connection to Little Moons because this depiction is of something of the spirit world. You can see that it is in the traditional Japanese style where you read from right to left. I picked this up because of Roz of Scallydandling About the Books. She recommended this. I'm so glad that she did. I had read one of Mizuki's books previously, Onward Towards Our Noble Deaths, which is about, based on true events, about soldiers during the Second World War in New Guinea and the nonsensical military bureaucracy. Now, this one is based on his childhood. So Mizuki was born in 1922 in a seaside village in Tottori Prefecture, which is the least populous prefecture in Japan. And this focuses solely on his childhood. So we're talking about 1920s and maybe early 1930s. And the NonNonBa of the title is an older woman who lived nearby, and she had many stories about yokai. These are the all different kinds of Japanese supernatural beings, and it sparked young Mizuki's interest in them. I'll pop in a picture here of NonNonBa. You can see the cartoony style that the artist uses for people, and yet the setting is highly realistic. This book is quite episodic. Some of the episodes had such a connection to what's going on right now, like this one. Remember, we're going from the right-hand side of the page to the left when you're looking at the speech bubbles. Shigeru asks, "Why wasn't Matsu at school today?" And NonNonBa says, "She died, Shige. The measles got her." The social, political, history underpins this, as well as the cultural aspects. For example, the yokai. Shigeru writes stories to amuse a bedridden girl, and there are these amusing dreamlike sequences. Here, Shigeru asks a yokai, "What are you doing here?" And the yokai says, "Moonlighting with the recession and all." This was the first manga to ever get the Best Album Award at Angoulême in France. That's the big comics festival. The style is gekiga, which is very cinematic and aimed at adult audiences. Another book that's in that style is A Drifting Life by Tatsumi Yoshihiro, which is another memoir told by a manga artist. I do recommend that one as well. And I've got another gekiga for you. This one is volume 2 of 3. The story is Tokyo These Days. It's by Taiyo Matsumoto, and it's translated into English by Michael Arias. It's set in contemporary Tokyo. It's got this atmosphere of ennui throughout. It's about this retired manga editor. I think it's quite autobiographical. Everything about it is quite high realism, except for the editor Shiozawa's bird. He has a bird that in his house that he can understand, and everything else, that's not explained, but everything else is highly realistic. It's very quiet drama with a focus on the interior lives of a whole bunch of different manga creators and their editors and the other people who work in the industry, and really their relationship to their craft. So, yeah, it's about art. For the next book, I'm going back to memoir. So this one is by Sarah Chihaya, and she has a Japanese father and a Japanese Canadian mother, and she grew up in both Canada and the US. The book is called Bibliophobia. This is her debut, and it's written in essay format. There's an interesting connection to NonNonBa, because Sarah's father disparages her mother for her peasant background, which is that her mother's family comes from the prefecture of Tottori, and apparently his family was aristocratic. And that dynamic is also in NonNonBa, except in reverse, because Mizuki's mother was the one who keeps bringing up the fact that her family comes from aristocracy. And there's also a connection to the graphic memoir Turning Japanese by Mari Naomi that I talked about last week, because there's a lot about the question of identity being both Japanese and also Canadian or American. For example, all 4 of us carried the weight of being Japanese and some kind of American, not knowing what either of those things should mean to us in either place. There's so much about Sarah Chihaya that I could identify with, because she was so closely identified with her connection to books. She says, "For better or worse, you are what you eat. The books that refuse to be easily digested, the ones that churn up anxieties and fears you never knew you had, these are the ones that have most strongly shaped my own experience of reading as an adult. Sarah had a mental breakdown and was hospitalized, and afterwards she couldn't read for a period of time. And I have a friend that happened to after being in a psychiatric ward for quite a while. She just couldn't read afterwards, and it took a while for her to regain that facility. So Sarah talks about the books that most influenced her, the books that really changed her in different ways. And many of these books have had a similar effect on me. So I'm talking about Anne of Green Gables, Toni Morrison's The Bluest Eye, A.S. Byatt's Possession, Ruth Ozeki's A Tale for the Time Being, books by Sarah Manguso and Sheila Heti. And the book that got her reading, the first book that she was able to read after her period in the hospital, was Helen DeWitt's The Last Samurai. Now, that is one that I have been meaning to read for a long time. I bought myself a copy. It's still sitting on the shelf. But this book makes me want to get to it even more. So sometime this year, I hope. I really enjoyed these essays. Another thing that Sarah said, when I write about a book, I need to copy out every phrase or passage that speaks to me. It takes hours and days to do this painstaking reread, but this copying feels like meditation or prayer. If you watch my channel, you probably know that I do this too and copy a lot into my commonplace book. Many, many passages from Bibliophobia are now collected in here. Next, I'm going to tell you about a collection of essays. This is a debut by Mikka Jacobsen. It's called Modern Fables, and she's a author from Calgary. I heard about this book on Sean Bree's Books channel. His mystery guest one time was the Calgary author Marian Douglas, and she recommended this. So I wouldn't have heard of it otherwise, but I do know now that Mikka has a collection of short stories, either coming out soon or has just come out, which I definitely will pick up. These essays look back on her life to teenage years and to present time. They're mostly focused on romantic relationships and the stories we tell ourselves about them and how that changes, can change over time. It's dark, funny, raw, sometimes painful to read. The things we do, poor choices we make. She writes about them all. And I've got another Canadian book for you, a collection of poetry, Wellwater by Karen Solie. This is her 8th collection of poetry. She is a multi-award winning writer from Saskatchewan. She grew up on a farm. The only other book of hers that I have read is Pigeon. That one won the Griffin Poetry Award as well as the Dorothy Livesey Award. I love that there are lilacs on the cover. Lilacs are blooming right now here in Victoria. I'm going to read you just a tiny little passage from a poem called The Trees in Riverdale Park. The trees are grand hotels closed for the season, but below ground, social life is taking place. As when snow lay on the fields and people descended to rec rooms, secret bars, like the snake pit in the basement of the curling rink in Golden Prairie, our big Ford nosing the siding. We waited for our parents with the engine running. This is fabulous. And my last book is Heartburn by Nora Ephron. This book came out in 1983. My feminist book club is going to be discussing this one, and I put requests on the paper copy, the digital copy, and the audiobook. All of them were out, and it was the ebook that came in first. So I read that, and then the audiobook hold came in. So I listened to the audiobook. So I've read it twice in the past week. It is so funny. If you're going to read a book about a rich white lady whose marriage has come to an end, this is the one to pick up. Oh my God, I was chuckling. I was laughing out loud. The audiobook is read by Meryl Streep, by the way, and apparently it is based on Nora Ephron's own life, her marriage, I think, to Carl Bernstein. You can correct me if I'm wrong about that. She has so much anger, and yet she can just make so many jokes. Very, very entertaining read. Okay, I had to edit in a part here about Heartburn because I forgot to say that Nora Ephron's avatar, Rachel, the woman who's telling the story, is a food writer and has a TV show, a food TV show. And she talks a lot about food, and she has recipes in the book. So I had to try out the bread pudding that she describes as being like caramelized mush. And it has so much nutmeg in it. It has no eggs. You bake it for 2 hours. I liked it very much. I was really happy with how that turned out. And I also made her vinaigrette. So just wanted to say that about the novel. You can tell it's set in 1979 because there's the 3 Mile Island nuclear meltdown happening in this short period that the novel takes place. And it was my absolute favorite read of the week. But all of these books are good. So thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you're planning to pick any of these up, or perhaps you have already, especially Heartburn. I'm sure lots of you have read that one. So many good books. We can't get to them all, but we enjoy them when we do read them, right? Stick around if you want to see a few scenes from the art studio open house, and say hello in the comments. I always love hearing from you, so give some kind of art emoji down there if you don't know what to say. I will see you all soon, and in the meantime, happy reading, everybody.
I like the very small size. I like that.